Towards the end of the Squire program, like you were saying, you asked me, what I found that a lot of fathers weren't doing, that they began doing, was hugging their sons, just affirming their sons. And I had to take a step back too, and I thought about that. I'm like, when's the last time did I actually hug my son? Like full frontal, chest to chest hug. Son, I love you. I appreciate you. You're doing a great job. Just hearing those words of affirmation really can inspire our sons to do better and to make better decisions. So the biggest takeaway from what I saw other fathers doing was actually hugging their sons. And that was a powerful moment too, towards the end when we all gave our sons a hug. I mean, it was just pretty moving.
Being a dad is one of the most rewarding roles we will ever have in our lives, but also can be one of the most overwhelming, where we find ourselves facing the pressures of juggling the demands of our family, careers, and life. This show will feature industry experts in mental health, social services, and personal development, along with resilient dad role models whose stories of overcoming the challenges of parenting get a new vision for the life you and your kids deserve. I'm your host, Pat DiDomenico, and this is the Resilient Dad Show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Resilient Dad Show. I'm your host, Pat DiDomenico, and on today's episode, we have Darnell Fontenot, a husband and a father of three. He's served as a firefighter for nearly 20 years. And also he's a modern day night graduate and the Squire Program graduate, and now the Texas founder of the Squire Program. Darnell, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Pat. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time and for what you're doing to now helping men and sons through the Squire Program. So can you tell us a little bit about the Squire Program? What is it?
The Squire Program is an amazing father-son bonding program. The Squire Program was established by Bedros Keuilian, who discovered the real need for fathers and sons to build a strong relationship together. It's a 12 to 15-hour course throughout the day, and fathers and sons go through many physical evolutions. And we also dive deep into emotional trauma and physical trauma, and we just get to the root of a lot of issues that are separating fathers from being with their sons.
And so you were a graduate with your son. What was the reason that you decided to attend the Squire Program with your son?
A long story. 3 years ago, my son and I, we went through the Squire Program. My son was 12 years old. He's currently 15 now. Yes. So 3 years ago, we went through the Squire Program. I was working, just being a father, being a husband, but I was working a lot of hours. And my wife pulled me to the side one day and she said, "Hey, I'm not into this to be a single parent." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm working, and the typical male response, "I'm providing you a home, a house, cars, all of this." She said, "Yes, but your son is suffering." And I'm like, "How is he suffering?" And she told me that my son got suspended from school. And I took a step back. I was like, "Suspended?" And my kid's he's a good kid. He's a chess player. He's a great kid. A's and B's. He's not really a troublemaker. So that really took me back. And I'm like, why did he get suspended? So I sat down and talked to my son, and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said they were just horse playing in the locker room, and he punched the guy because they were wrestling and fighting and slap boxing, and he ended up punching the guy and it hit his nose, and he started bleeding from his nose. So, of course, it was all recorded on cell phones, and parents got involved, and so the school faculty got involved as well. And so my son got 3-day suspension. So from that, it opened my eyes to see that my son was trying to fit in to a group of kids that wasn't those kids I don't necessarily approve of, but he was trying to fit in. So I stopped and thought, I'm like, my son needs direction. He was in 8th grade then, I think. So he was really kind of trying to find, and we had just moved to a new school. We had relocated. And so we were in a new school, and he was really trying to fit in with kids that he shouldn't be trying to fit in. So from that point, it ignited me to find something for my son and I, and how can I be a more present involvement in his life. So that road led me down to the Squire Program. So, because I Googled like father-son stuff, and the Squire Program popped up, and I just grabbed hold to it because I liked everything that I saw. So we went and attended the Squire Program, and it was a wonderful father-son experience. Changed our lives. Changed my life more than anything.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
And shout out to Bedros Coolin for starting the Squire Program, because from that, then you also enrolled and into the project. And now a modern day knight, which I'm privileged also to be able to say, and we were in the same class with one another. And it's amazing when you're able to have these experiences that how much it's able to transform your life. And like you're saying, setting that environment, the people, the places that we surround ourselves with, your son who going to a new school and not necessarily having his own foundations of who he really is. We're easily pulled to try and fit in when really it's being able to step into our own, own that. Yeah, I couldn't imagine how great that would have been to go through with your son. And I've got 3 boys, 6, 4 and 2. I've got to wait at least another 6 years before I can attend the Squire Program. But what were the big things that you noticed from starting the program with your son and even with other fathers and their sons to the end of the actual event?
So the biggest, what I noticed is that my son didn't trust me or didn't trust me at the time. And I didn't really understand it. But after the Squire Program, we drove home. We went home and we had a long talk. And at the beginning, Bedros has a huge bear trap, and he does this speech, and he slams the bear trap with a stick, and the bear trap slams shut, and it breaks the stick in half, and the sparks fly and everything. And it's really attention grabbing. And Bedros just uses that to say how that's what life does to men. When we get caught in our vices and we get caught up in not standing up for what we believe in, then we get caught in a bear trap, life's bear traps. And so at the end of the Squire Program, fathers blindfold their sons and we take them through an obstacle course. Now in the middle of the obstacle course, the bear trap is there. I'm telling my son, I blindfold my son and I'm like, okay, Zachariah, let's go. And so he takes a little step forward and I'm like, let's go, Zachariah, let's go. But he's very hesitant. And I'm telling him to step left, step right. It's all types of obstacles. He had to crawl on his knees, but he kept asking me, he said, Daddy, where's the bear trap? And I said, you're nowhere near the bear trap. Let's go. And he was really scared, really frightened. And after the end of the obstacle course, we finally finished, but our time was horrible because he was so hesitant and so reluctant to complete the course. And so I asked him, I said, Zach, what took you so long? Like, why weren't you moving when I was asking you to move? And he said, I didn't know where the bear trap was. And I said, do you really think that I would allow you to step into the bear trap? He said, Daddy, I was so scared of the bear trap, I didn't want to step into it. And I said, son, do you trust me? And he looked at me and we had one of those awkward moments. It was quiet.
Yeah.
And he hesitated. He said, yes, I do, kind of, but I don't. And so I was taken aback by that because here I am thinking I'm a decent dad. I'm raising kids. But if my son doesn't trust me to walk through this obstacle course, then what happens in life when I tell him, don't date this girl, she's no good, or don't hang out with these friends, they're no good? Will he even trust me in guiding him in that direction? So that was my biggest takeaway from the whole Squire Program.
And like you mentioned at the start, when your wife mentioned to you that she didn't want to be a single mother, it's hard for us fathers to hear that or acknowledge even the thought of, what do you mean? Like, being a single parent, like, I'm a provider. For me, pretty much from the start of my marriage, for 4 years, I was working minimum 7 days, leaving home before anyone would wake up, and I'd be home most of the time after the kids had already gone to sleep. And for me, I'm doing what I'm meant to do. I'm providing, making sure that, like you said, there's a roof over everyone's head, there's food on the table. You get to be able to look after the kids. But really, that's not the main thing that they need. And as a result, we don't have that connection with our kids. Like one of the stats that I've found that even if a father is present in a child's life, that a father and a son will only spend 30 minutes a week on one-on-one conversation, whereas a boy will spend up to 44 hours a week with video games, the TV, on their phone. And you look at the comparison, it's like, no wonder kids are so much influenced by the external world, because they're not getting it from the home. And us fathers who are leading are the example. And then we get confused on why are we having the outcome that we are. Like, we've done everything that we believe that we're meant to, but what our sons really need and our families is leadership. So, yeah. Did you find a lot of other fathers also were in the same boat that you were, that attended the Squire program?
So towards the end of the Squire program, like you were saying, you asked me, what I found that a lot of fathers weren't doing, that they began doing, was hugging their sons, just affirming their sons. And I had to take a step back too, and I thought about that. I'm like, when's the last time I actually hug my son? Like full frontal, chest to chest hug. Son, I love you. I appreciate you. You're doing a great job. Just hearing those words of affirmation really can inspire our sons to do better and to make better decisions. So the biggest takeaway from what I saw other fathers doing was actually hugging their sons. So that was a powerful moment too, towards the end when we all gave our sons a hug. It was just pretty moving. So,
and that's a father that is present. I want to share some stats about what happens when a father is not present or emotionally available, like you were saying, to be able to connect with their kids, to be able to hug them, tell them that, you know, I love you, because maybe they didn't experience that themselves. And you discussed before about the book that, you know, that you read prior to the program. So there's 80% of single parent homes are led by mothers. So there's 70 million fathers in the United States, and 20 million of them never had a father in their life for one day. 90% of all homelessness and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, and 85% of all teens behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. Roughly 70% of all teenage pregnancies come from women raised in fatherless homes. And fatherless kids are 20 times more likely to exhibit violence behavior than children with two-parent households. Like, when you actually look at the stats and see the challenges that we have in society these days, so if we're having these challenges when you have a father that is present, imagine all the kids that don't.
Yeah.
You were sharing with me in terms of the book, and some of you can tell us about in the United States where, you know, you are the actual issue.
So along those lines of the stats that you said, when we talk about teen suicide, we have to remember that also the male child is typically, the men are suffering from suicide rates higher than females. But then you start thinking, you're like, well, females come from the same fatherless homes as the males do. Their suicide rates as high as the males are. It's because the males are affected more in a negative way than the actual females are. And so you mentioned this book here, The Boy Crisis. I read it, and it really broke down the effects of fathers not being in the home or not being present with young men, and how drastically it affects our young men. And as you mentioned also, it becomes a generational thing, or maybe because their father didn't have a father present. So he's just repeating the same horrible actions that he saw. And so it's going onto his son. And so his son will, if someone doesn't intervene, like the Squire program, he'll repeat those same destructive behaviors as well. The lack of a father figure in a son's life is very detrimental, and it hurts our boys more so than it hurts our girls. Yeah. So dads are needed and necessary.
That's even if the parents aren't necessarily together. It's still so important for a father to be present in that son's life. And for me, being a single father, initially when I first had my son, I made sure, regardless of the circumstance or the situation, the relationship that I had with his mother, with co-parenting, that I'm going to do everything possible to make sure that I'm in his life and doing the best I can to demonstrate what it is to be a man. Because not having my father present for the majority of my life, I've saw the repercussions and the consequences, like you're saying, people pleasing, not being able to fully own yourself and be confident in who you are, and then always trying to fit in where it's that lack of affirmation, like you said, from a father to a son, to acknowledge his worth, that, he is loved and he doesn't need to seek external validation, and it's the internal validation that's most important. So yeah, I can completely resonate with what you're saying and what we're discussing, because stats or facts, what they are, the sort of divorce rates through the years, and then obviously the increase and the effect that it has on our children, we can't argue facts. So there either is the problem or the solution. And I see that the Squire program is a solution to address part of the issue we have.
Yes. And you mentioned divorce. So short history about myself. My parents were divorced. My grandparents were divorced. I'm not sure about my great-grandparents, but divorce runs in my family. And it wasn't until I went to the Squire program that my eyes were open to that, because the instructors had to sit down and we did a deep dive into your past and what about your dad? And so I just started thinking, and I'm like, divorce, like I said, divorce plagues my family history. And I came to grips with, I have to stop. Like, I have to really stop this reoccurring issue that's happening in our family, because if I get a divorce, then all my son sees when he thinks Fontenot men is divorce. And if all of society, if you meet a Fontenot, then it's like, you just know that we're plagued by divorce. And I really wanted to change the narrative of my family's bloodline.
Yeah.
So my biggest takeaway from that was date my wife. When we came back from the Squire program, she really likes the person that I've become since the Squire program. And we have date nights throughout the week. They also encouraged us to take family vacations. All of these things I did not do prior to the Squire program, but it opened my eyes to see how much more it meant to be a man than just to be a provider, just working continuously. Because as a firefighter, we work 24 hours here in Houston, in the Houston Fire Department. We work 24 hours. So there'd be times when I could be gone 2 or 3 days from the house. And then when you do come home, you're so worn out, that you're not connecting with anyone. You're just kind of a vegetable sitting at the dinner table, and nobody's really interacting with you, and you're not interacting with them. And like I said, the Squire program just opened my eyes to see that this is no life. This is not the way that I want to raise my son, or my wife deserves more than this. Yeah. So I'm defeating divorce. Divorce stops with me. It no longer goes forward. And like I said, my wife is there to attest to that. Like, she's just smiling ear to ear. Sometimes we'll be going through the week and she'll look at me and she'll be like, "Hey, we hadn't had our day yet." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're right." So we'll plan something and we'll go out that night or whatever. But it's really made a huge difference in my life, in my marriage, and in my family as well.
And now you deciding to spread the Squire program over to Texas. Can you tell us a bit more about the first Squire program coming up?
Yes. So this is very exciting as well, because when my son and I, we attended the Squire program, and he just thoroughly enjoyed it. Tim Kennedy was there. Ray Cash Care was there. And so Zachariah was like, "Daddy, like these are Navy SEAL guys." And I'm like, "Yeah, like the games, the Fortnite games that you're playing, they're playing them because of these heroes right here." And he was like, "Wow." But he was really impacted by them. So I was even impacted by it as well. So I walked up to Bedros Koulian at the end of it. We were shaking hands and saying our goodbyes. And I said, how can we get this here in Houston, Texas? And he said, you just need to open one up. And I was like, wow, okay. And I've never backed down from a challenge. So I said, okay, let's do it. So it's been an ongoing thing. And so April 29th, we're having our first Squire program here in the Houston area. And I'm very excited about that. And doing so, Bezos also said, he said, since you're going to open up the Squire program, he said, why don't you be a student of the project? I was like, what's the project? And as Pat, the project is a 75-hour course for men only. And that was life-changing as well. Through all of that, here I am, and we're having our first Squire program here, April 29th. So I'm very excited. I'm a new person, new man. I have a new outlook on life, loving my wife, loving my kids. No more vices. I'm really enjoying it. Life is good.
And talking about vices, because that's something I didn't really understand or I was conscious about even prior to the project on how much of an impact it had. And what I realized was the lack of direction or purpose contributed to those vices drifting, because I had no clear goal or system or direction that this is what I do and this is what I'm about. How has that alone impacted your life? Because I know for me, that's been huge, being able to eliminate those vices because I'm having more purpose and direction. That has made a huge transformation just in that alone in my life.
So the vices were, and I didn't realize how much time we can actually lose to our vices. Vices like pornography, alcohol, gambling, anything that takes you away from your core values and your core beliefs. And like you said, until I went through the Squire program and then followed by the project, I was able to get a sense of purpose in life. There's more to my life than just working 60 plus hours a week, like developing a purpose. So anything that does not line up with my purpose is considered a vice to me. So I'm able to steer clear from that because now I have a purpose. So in having a purpose helps me to dominate my life, dominate my day, wake up, and no more snooze button. I have a purpose in life, so I'm able to get up with a clear head because I know what my purpose is, and I'm able to move forward with my days. Getting rid of vices was a real big boost in the right direction for me. No more just eating horrible. And that can become a problem with firefighters because of our hours we work. And here it is, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and we hadn't had any sleep. So it's real easy just to veg out on chips or fast food and just, like I said, just steer you away from the direction that you really need to be heading.
Yeah.
So done away with the vices. My attitude's better. My wife's, your attitude is just so much better. Kids enjoy being around me now. Like I said, life is just great now. So
a man with purpose.
A man with purpose. Yes. Yes.
And other than going to the Squire program, what's something else that you would recommend to dads? Like where could they start on their own with where they are right now to start improving, moving towards the man that they want to be?
Get involved. Be involved in your son. I'm at the school every day now. If I'm not at work, I'm at the school. And the coaches know me, the teachers know me, and I'm just a visible factor in my son's life now. I show up to games, I show up to programs, whereas before, I'm like, your mother can take you, or you can go with your mom, or everything was like, go with your mom, go with your mom. Right. Your mom will take you. Your mom will be there. Dad has to work. And you can see his face. He was like, okay, Dad. Like, he kind of understood, but he didn't. But now it's, hey, Daddy's going to be there. And you used to see his face. Daddy's going to be there. His face lights up now because he knows I'm going to be in the stands. I'm cheering for him. About a month ago, he had a chess tournament. Zachariah had a chess tournament. And he was like, Daddy, are you going to be at my chess tournament? Of course. Yeah, I'm going to be there. His face is lit up. And so I don't even know how to play chess. I don't know how he learned, but he's a pretty good chess player. So we went to a chess tournament, and I just thoroughly enjoyed watching my son play chess. And like I said before, the affirmation of him, he would scratch his head and over to move, but he would look over in the corner and see me sitting there, and you could just see how he just took a deep breath and he's able to go at it again. Those moments like that. And I think to myself, what if I wouldn't have been there? What if he would have glanced over to the corner and not seen me? Would that have made a big difference in his life? I don't know, but I don't want him to ever have to experience that again. What's important to him is important to me. Like I said, I don't even play chess, but he does. So we're playing chess now. We take weekly father-son time. Typically, it's just a walk. My neighborhood, we back up to the state forest. And so we'll just take a walk through the forest, him and I. Hey, how was your week? Anything you want to tell me? And so we just spend that time together.
Yeah.
And he shared with me once when we were taking our walk about how he was exposed to smoking, to vaping. He said there were some guys in the bathroom, they were vaping. And I said, what did you do? He said, this was before the Squire Program. And he said, well, Daddy, I smoked with them. And I'm like, son. And I was just like, I said, why you didn't tell me about it? He said, because I was scared of what you would do or what you would say. And so that left a profound impact on me as well, because I'm like, I don't want my son to be afraid to come talk to me about anything. And I think my son has always seen me as a father figure, but he's never seen me as a friend. And because he's never seen me as a friend, he's never really opened up to me to tell me how he feels or what he's going through, because he was afraid of how I would react.
Yeah.
And that's something we learned as well at Project. Like, men do not react, men respond. So I've learned to respond to my son versus reacting. And so all of us has made a big improvement in our lives together. Like I said, so if a father wants to really help his son, the biggest way to help is just to become more involved. Yeah. Become involved in life, and don't be such a dictator. Like, I was a dictator, and my son was just, he would not open up to me because of but that's how I was raised. Like, I was raised, my dad he had a stern hand as well. So that's how I was raised. So that's what I was raising my son in. And it's not that it's not effective, but there's a better way. There's a better way. So
definitely.
So I learned.
Yeah. So, man, as Darnell just shared, be present in your son's life, even if it's not something that you're interested in. What's important is that connecting with them and them knowing that you're there for them, because you don't want them to be going through life and not knowing that they're able to open up and trust you, because the last thing you want is for something to happen that becomes a permanent situation for them because they didn't have the opportunity or they didn't feel that they could open up and communicate with you because they didn't believe that you were there. So, as they say, hard times create strong men create good times, create weak men, and weak times create strong men. So let's be the change and be the solution and not the problem to what the situation we have in the world at the moment with young boys and men as fathers. So, Darnell, thank you very much for coming on the show and for what you're doing. What's the best way for dads to reach out and connect with you?
The best way is to go we're on Instagram and Squire Program Texas TX, Squire Program Texas TX. We're also on Facebook, Squire Program Texas as well. But the best way to reach out is on Instagram.
Awesome. So everyone, have you seen the transformation and what's happened with Darnell with his son? So if you're ready to step up and be that leader for your son and also give your son the opportunity to have his rite of passage to manhood so that he doesn't become a sheep and be a boy in a man's body, you know exactly where to go. So thank you for listening. Please share this episode with anyone that you know would find value from this. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. And always remember, you're stronger than you think you are. Stay resilient. Hey everyone, I really appreciate you listening to today's show. It means a lot to me that you are part of the journey and mission to help fathers be the best dads possible. I'd really appreciate it if you review the show and share it with someone you genuinely believe could benefit from this content. Please visit resilientdad.com for more content and resources as we build this community for dads everywhere.